Do you have friends or are you part of any clubs? Do you have religion? Assalamu alaikum and good day. I am Johari Lomontod from STEM 12.5 and today we are going to talk about social groups according to organizations, namely informal and formal groups, as well as bureaucracy. First, let's define what is social group. When two or more individuals come together and influence one another, they may be called a social group. That is according to William Ogburn. According to Mayer Nimkoff, a social group is a group of two or more persons who are in state of interaction with one another. In the social sciences, a social group can be defined as two or more people who interact with one another, share similar characteristics, and collectively have sense of unity. Regardless, social groups come in a myriad of sizes and varieties. For example, a society can be viewed as a large social group. The system of behaviors and psychological processes occurring within a social group or between social group is known as group dynamics. There are many categories of social groups depending on the basis of that category, but today we are going to focus on social groups on the basis of rules and regulations, namely the formal and informal groups. A formal group is formed when people come together to accomplish specific goals and objectives. An official group has particular structures and rules where responsibilities of members of the group are defined. Activities carried by a formal group has specific guidelines which members of the group are supposed to adhere to and follow to ensure good coordination. Some of the most common formal groups that exist within the organization or community include schools, church, hospitals, government, and civic organizations. There are several different kinds of formal groups and each is usually defined by its purpose or structure. Some of these types of groups include common groups, committee, and task groups. Common groups which are formed by members who all report to the same person. For instance, a group of employees who all worked for and reported to the same manager would be considered a common group. Task groups, on the other hand, which consist of people who are all brought together to complete a certain task or complete a certain task. Task groups can be developed both within and outside of a formal work environment and are only intended to last until the task is completed. Committees, lastly, which consist of a group of people who are elected. Usually, committees come from within a larger group and are formed in order to tackle particular issues or make collective decisions. An informal group is formed when two or more people come together to accomplish a specific task which is mainly socially geared. The main idea behind the establishment of the informal group is the satisfaction of both personal and psychological needs. Informal groups are not subjected to any rules and regulations in the company, and the members of this group willingly to belong to this group. There are no explicit guidelines that govern the operations of an informal group. Anyone who has ever been to high school has almost certainly experienced informal groups firsthand. In the average school environment, there are plenty of informal groups, often referred to as cliques, barcadas, squad, and many more. Just as there are different types of formal groups, informal groups can also take on a variety of forms. Some of these include following types of groups, which are the interest groups, friendship groups, and reference group. Interest groups are formed by people who share a similar set of, you guessed that, interests. Examples include a group of friends who gather to watch football, play cards, or learn new language every week. While they may share similar goals, they aren't usually business-oriented and are more based around community and fun. Friendship groups are also pretty straightforward in that they are formed by a group of friends. These individuals often enjoy similar activities and have common values and interests. Their relationship do not tend to revolve around one particular activity, but instead are more about enjoying each other's company. Reference groups are groups of individuals belonging to in order to compare themselves with others. Examples might club members of a country club who define their level of success against one another. Additionally, families and religious groups are other types of common reference group that people use to measure whether their own thoughts and values are right or wrong. Now, let's talk about the differences of the two groups. Now, for the first one, we're going to talk about the difference of the two groups in terms of their formation. One of the main differences between the formal and informal group is a process through which some groups are formed. The management of the company to achieve specific tasks deliberately forms formal groups. This means that some rules and regulations guide the formation of a formal group. One cannot leave the group without the authority of the management. On the other hand, an informal group is voluntarily formed by members coming together to satisfy their personal and psychological needs. One can join and leave the group when he or she decides. Now, let's talk about the difference of the two groups in terms of their structure. Structures of a formal group are defined where the hierarchy and flow of information from one member of the group to the other member is communicated. This means that there is a chain of command through which instructions are administered. Most of the time, an informal group does not have structures, but when it does exist, it is mostly not defined. This means that there is no chain of command and the flow of information from one member to the other. Additionally, communication in a formal group flows from top to bottom, while conversation in an informal group moves sideways and without a definite path. The difference of the two groups in terms of the relationship. In a formal group, the relationship between members is professional because the group is created to achieve a specific task or goal that is controlled by the management of the organization. Moreover, a professional relationship between members is brought about by the fact that some members are senior in the organization. In an informal group, the relationship between members is personal. Members of an informal group know each other at a personal level, thus making their relationship to be guided by personal aspects. Additionally, there is no seniority in the group, which means that any member can assume a leadership position. The difference of the two groups in terms of their size. Formal groups are usually large because they are formed with the purpose of ensuring that they can achieve goals that measure the success of the company. Members of a formal group have skills and competencies to handle official activities on behalf of the company. Informal groups are comparatively small because close friends or people who know one another on a personal level from them. This makes it challenging to assemble many members since not all persons in an organization know one another at a personal level. The difference of the two groups in terms of their nature. Formal groups are usually stable and are likely to exist for a lengthy period. Additionally, the task allocated to a formal group may last for a long duration, hence making the formal group exist until the task allocated is completed. Informal groups are not stable because they are governed by the feelings between the members. In case the sentiments between members become volatile, the group is likely to be dissolved. Unlike formal groups, which existence is determined by the nature of the activity, the length of an informal group is dependent on the members. The difference of the two groups in terms of their practices or behavior. The practice of members of a formal group is governed by specific rules and regulations, which are usually formulated at the inception of the group. All members of the group are supposed to adhere to the rules and guidelines that define the group. Wherever formal groups have a defined leadership structure where there is an official leader who ensures that the group is in the line to achieve its goal while at the same time enforcing rules among members. The behavior of an informal group is governed by the expressions of members' norms, beliefs, and the values that members hold dear. There is no official leader of the group to enforce the non-existence rule and regulations, as members do what is necessary to them instead what is imposed. And for the last part of this video, we are going to talk about what is bureaucracy. So what is bureaucracy? Bureaucracies are an ideal type of formal organization. Pioneer sociologist Max Weber popularly characterized a bureaucracy as having a hierarchy of authority, a clear division of labor, explicit rules, and impersonality. Bureaucracies were the basic structure of rational, efficient organization. Yet, people often complain about bureaucracies, declaring them slow, rule-bound, difficult to navigate, and unfriendly. Let us take a look at terms that define bureaucracy as an ideal type of formal organization to understand what they mean. First one is the hierarchy of authority, which refers to the aspect of bureaucracy that places one individual or office in charge of another, who in turn must answer to his or her own superior. Number two here is the clear division of labor, which refers to the fact that within a bureaucracy, each individual has a specialized task to perform. Number three is the explicit rules. The existence of explicit rule refers to the way in which rules are outlined, written down, and standardized. There is a continuous organization of official functions bound by rules. Bureaucracies are also characterized by impersonality, which takes personal feelings out of professional situations. Each office or position exists independently of its incumbent, and clients and workers receive equal treatment. These characteristics grew to some extent out of desire to eliminate the potential for nepotism, backroom deals, and other types of irrational favoritism, simultaneously protecting customers and others served by the organization.